Kia ora, welcome to the Guerin Report. How are you feeling after back-to-back Cup weeks, Melbourne into Christchurch? It's been great fun, hasn't it? To everybody who's had a winner, to those who had success last week at the Ready to Run sales, congratulations to all, and well done to the team here at Trackside on 2 huge weeks of coverage. Last week, we promised you the second part of our Mark Purdon chat, where we would talk about the great horses and how he trains. So here he is to kick off the Guerin Report tonight, Mark Purdon, Part 2. Well, Mark, Cup week's been and gone, and we want to talk to you now about horses for some of those horse people out there and people who want to pick your brain, so I'll do it for them. These days, you and Nathan train a lot less horses. How has, since way back with your dad and Barry and Tony in the early 90s, how has training changed?
I really don't think it's changed a lot, even though times would say that, times have got better. But I think it's what you've got between the shafts, Mick, and I think great horses back in those early days would still be great horses today. I
sort of remember when I first got into the Herald and to talking to people like your dad and Barry, there was a lot of worked a mile and a half and 3:15, home in a minute or 58, and maybe down to 3:12, 3:10. We used to hear about Australians working in 3:5 when we thought it was crazy wild stuff. Has that changed? Has that mile and a half and 3:15, I wouldn't suggest that's probably good enough to get most of them fit enough for what they need to do now?
Well, it hasn't changed for me, and that would be a nice run.
So that's your stock standard Tuesday morning type thing?
Probably at the end of the week I'd train them that sort of time, or between the 3:12, 3:15 mark.
Okay, so the horses are going about 5 to 10 seconds quicker than they were 30 years ago, but you're telling me you don't work them that much quicker?
No, but other things have changed too, Mick. We've got the speed sulkies, and I think Robert Pamela was the first to bring them in before the New Zealand Cup, and from there, everyone sort of followed suit and brought the American racing sulkies in. That would have a bearing. We've got great track conditions now, John Denton, and they've formed a sort of a community where they're making it better, making better services.
You say the good horses back in we'll go 91, so Mark Hanover, or a couple of years later, the Chokins, you say they would be as good as the horses now? So they could run those times, you think?
Oh, definitely.
You could?
Yeah, definitely, yes. They'd be very competitive today.
Okay. It feels like we go a lot faster. The times are obviously faster, but when you watch Cup Day, it feels like they're absolutely humming. Does the racing feel different than it did 20 or 30 years ago? When you're out there, does it feel different?
No, you do find you don't get that let up like you used to. In the old days, they'd back off the pace and you'd have the opportunity. A lot of standing starts too back in those days, and when the pace backed off, you had that opportunity to get round. But today they roll pretty well all the way.
You mentioned the sort of regular times you work and how that hasn't changed greatly. And horses, but most stables, seem to be creatures of habit and creatures of repetition. But how important is it to have the skill in your arsenal to say, no, this isn't working, this horse needs a canter, or this horse needs a swim, or we need to drop oats out of its diet? How important is it to not fall into being a slave to repetition?
Well, it's very important. You've got to treat each horse as an individual. That sort of thing. You have good trainers, you have very good trainers, and you have great trainers, and I think it's the great trainers that can pick those sort of things.
I rang you once, you won't remember this. I rang you, you were in Perth for the Inter-Dominion, so it must have been Les or Smolder. And I said, where are you going? And you said, I'm going to the beach. And I said, why are you going to the beach? He said, I'm taking either Les or Smolder, one or the other, for a swim. I said, how often do you swim him? He said, I've never swum him before. And it was the week of the Inter-Dominions. Do you remember doing that?
Yes.
So which one was it?
Smolder.
So what would possess a man to get a horse to an Inter-Dominion final and never having swum the horse and think, I'm going to borrow someone's float and go to the beach?
No, well, he just walked in the water. He wasn't swimming, but he had Sean, I can't think of his last name, but he was a really good guy, and he used to ride him in the water.
And you just thought he needed something different?
Well, it was just something to freshen him up mentally. He had 3 hard runs in a week, and
when I rang you, you sounded like you were lost. You sounded like you didn't know exactly where you were going to the beach. Let's talk about success of another sort. you bought a lot of very good horses at the yearling sales. What are the key things you like at the yearling sales? And what are the key things you don't like?
One of the key things is bettor's delight.
Yeah, me too, but I can't afford them.
It's hard to go, been spoiled with them really. You know, his fertility's been great. He's been able to cover a lot of mares. And
Well, still now, Leap to Fame marketplace, like he's still leaving,
Yes.
great horses.
Yeah,
Come from
that's
both
right.
sides of that blood.
yeah.
All right, what do you like in the horse? Do you go catalogue first and that's a family I like, so I'll go look at that horse, or do you look at the horses and then turn to the page?
Usually go to the page first and then have a selection off the page. Usually just go around the horses I have earmarked and want to look at, and then I'll say to the consignor, look, if there's anything else you've got in your draft that you might want me to look at, just pull them out.
Do you know, once they come out of the box, do you usually instantly have a feeling, yep, I kind of like that? I mean, obviously there can be confirmation faults that you'll pick off later on, but do you have a pretty good idea when you first see them?
Pretty good idea, yeah. You certainly can dismiss the ones you don't like quickly.
Some people tell me they love an intelligent eye, some people love big ears, some people love deep girth on a horse because it's a part of their body which may not grow later in life. What are the physical attributes you like in a horse at the yearling sales?
I like a good head
Yeah.
to start
Intelligent head?
with. Intelligent head, yeah.
What about things you don't like? I mean, obviously no one likes bad legs, we get that part. I'm not talking conformation, like some people don't like small hooves, some people don't like small ears, and some people just don't like small horses.
I think you've named everything.
So they're the key factors, like you
Yes,
need,
yeah.
I suppose, you're not going to win a Formula One in a Mini, are you?
No.
No, all right. Have your tastes changed? You had a crack at training gallopers, you've done it semi-seriously, and then you've also now said, I'm going to do more harness, so you still have gallopers that are in work. What did you learn from your time with gallopers?
I went into the galloping because it's just something I've always wanted to do, and I didn't want to make it my life, but I wanted to give it a fair crack, and so I had 4 gallopers, and Glenn Old welcomed me at Matamata and made it possible for me to do, and I really enjoyed the time doing the gallopers. I missed the people at the track. I really enjoyed that too. But the thing with the gallopers, there's a fine line in having them peaked, and there's a fine line in just overdoing them. And it's just there's certainly an art in it, and I've still got a little bit more experience before I learned that.
I found doing a lot more galloping reporting that I was stunned how quickly they would come to hand, and I was stunned how little work they would take sometimes. People would say, we've given this 2 800-metre gallops and it's going to the trials. And I was like, what? You must have found that very unusual when you're used to being in the sulky behind them for 40 minutes.
Yeah, well, bringing them up from scratch, I can see that. They just, you just got to be careful. And as I say, there's an art with them when they are peaked that you back off them.
What about being around them? I mean, standard breds sometimes are so docile, they'll put your head on your shoulder and relax. Some of the gallopers might be a little bit more flighty if a stray piece of paper drives past them. Have you found that the gallopers are a different type of animal?
Oh yes, they are. Very much a flight animal and that sort of thing. But they're still a lovely horse.
Galloping has enormously gone ahead, Mark, in Australasia in the last 5 years here, maybe, or 2 years here, but in the last 20 years in Australia. Do you ever look back and think you wouldn't have minded giving it a crack? Because I know there were people who were keen to get you across to galloping. I mean, you have such a gift for harness horses, but do you ever think, gee, I would have loved to have gone head to head at Flemington or Randwick with a couple of those guys?
Well, yeah, that would have been nice, but in the real world, I think I made the right decision staying in harness.
What about overseas? I mean, you have toured America. You're one of the few trainers to ever take a horse, well, you're the only one, to take a horse from down here and qualify it for the Elite Loppet with Pt.2, and you've had staggering success in Australia. Did you ever feel like moving to another part of the world to ply your craft?
Not really. Went to America 2 or 3 times, and you could see that it was more of a young person's sport in taking it on at my age.
What about Australia? Because it's right next door, and as I said, at one stage I think you had trained pretty much every major Group 1 winner in Australia for a 12-month period of the ones you actually contested. Did you ever think, like lots of Kiwis do, I would like to live in Melbourne or I would like to live in Sydney?
Well, when we started buying yearlings, and they were 2-year-olds, and we went there to race, I'd generally spend up to 5 months of the year in Australia. So I was spending a good part of the year there anyway. But it would have been different. I did have a stable in Auckland for a time and operated in Christchurch and Auckland, and that worked well, but I think Melbourne or Sydney, it would have been hard to make that work.
Both you and I have had a lot of wonderful times at Alexandra Park. How do you feel now when you see the financial troubles it's been through, the impending sale of Franklin Park, the selling of all that real estate? It was your home track for a long time. It probably kind of still is now. Was that something you think about or got involved in or paid any attention to?
Oh, I paid a lot of attention to it, Mick, and it's really sad because what we could have been racing for and the position we could have been in, and to be landed with such a horrific debt, it's heartbreaking.
Is it that personal for you? Because for me, it is that personal. I sometimes still get pissed off about the entire thing. Is it that personal for you when I think about there could be 30,000 per race every Friday night?
Yeah, for sure. It's like that for me too, and Ellersley's down the road and they've done such a great job.
Let's talk horses. People love talking about good horses. I think I know the answer, but I'm going to ask it. Who's the best horse you've had?
Had a lot of great horses, Mick, and I think to be fair to them, we've got to break it into 3 categories.
Okay, your show, you can start.
Yeah, Lazarus was the best horse.
Okay, why him?
Oh, look, he did everything. He was he became very close. He's like a mate, really. He was a lovely stallion, and but he won everything. He won 2 cups here, and
that time you won the cup here by 10 lengths. That must have been quite a cool feeling, coming down the straight that far in front, and he beat 2 subsequent Inter-Dominion winners with, 15,000-18,000 people here. How did that feel?
Oh yeah, it was magic. Yeah, and he's a champion.
Okay, so he's in category 1. What are the other categories?
Well, the mares, you'd have to, Dormy would be the best mare, and she won 147 and
147.7 at Menangle.
Yeah, at Menangle.
Won a New Zealand Cup.
Yep, won the New Zealand Cup.
You've had a lot of great mares though.
Yes, yeah. Amazing Dream was just the latest one, I think. Millwood Nike.
I take it the other categories trotters or young horses?
Trotters, I'd say I Can Do's it.
Really?
He had everything. Yeah.
Because he didn't have a great gait.
No, he always touched one hind leg, and it wouldn't matter how much we experimented with the shoeing, we couldn't get him off it. But he was tough, and where a lot of trotters would probably have wanted to gallop and get out of it, he never let you down.
What about the fastest horse you've had? Have you ever sat behind a horse and just gone, oh, this is awesome?
Well, probably Oscar Monavina. He'd certainly be the fastest trotter for sure, but he could put it with a pacer too.
Best trotter, you said I Can Do's it. I have to ask you because we're sitting here at Addington, and remarkably, I think from 23 starts, it'll be a number like that. Pt.2 raced here that many times and never won at Addington. But I still think what she did in Adelaide that night's one of the greatest performances I've seen in those colours.
Yeah, certainly was, Mick. She used to thrive when we started off going at Melbourne first for the summer carnival, and honestly, when she set foot on Melbourne soil, she seemed to thrive, and she loved the heat.
Always dappled up and she looked beautiful.
Yeah, she just loved the heat, and she'd always do so well. So she was always a better mare there than what she was here.
You've won so many big races. You might want a couple because you've won so many big ones. What are a couple of the performances that still you can feel in your gut or in your heart?
Well, Pt.2's Inter-Dominion win was one.
And you sacked yourself in Purdon.
Well, I'd won the Inter-Dominion the year before, and she won off 20 or 30 metres, and she was given an extra 10 metres at Adelaide on a half-mile track, and I really felt negative about her chances, and I didn't want to drive her and feel that way, so I put the best on, and and it was a great field, but it's just a race where you got your heart in your mouth till the last stride.
All right, so that's one of the performances. What are another couple ones that are still special to you?
Well, I think Smolder, the Inter-Dominion, winning that with Neil involved, and he wasn't well at the time, and that was a great thrill.
Neil Pilcher obviously was a very close friend of yours, and half friend, half mentor, a little bit drinking buddy.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he's a great man.
Anything else? I mean, obviously Lazarus's New Zealand Cup, but was there a race that, I don't know, it wasn't the biggest race that meant something to you for different reasons, or was that the Smolder one because of Pilcher at the time?
The Smolder one was, with Neil involved, yeah.
What about best trainers? Now, it's probably difficult being a Purdon answering this question, but we'll give you a couple because you've trained against everybody. Who are the best trainers you've worked against or for?
There's been a number of good trainers over the years, and when I started training, Ken Guerin joined forces with John Lishner, and they were tough for a while when they were together. They had a lot of good horses. They were well supported by the Southland and had a lot of good horses. Jeff Small was a little bit later. He came along. He was a great trainer. He was a little fiery, but he was a gifted horseman. and of course Robert Dunn, and then Johnny came along and them as a team, and then later joined by Jenna in the training ranks. They were great. Davey and Catherine Butt. They were good competitors, Tim Butt and Anthony Butt. But I think over the length of time that I've been training, Barry's been the one that's probably stood the test of time still.
What makes Barry a good trainer? Well, a great trainer, I shouldn't say good, a great trainer.
Yeah, he's a great trainer. It's always great to go away with Barry because he was just so attentive to his horses. He was good to watch and good to learn off, and no one would treat a horse better than Barry. Yeah.
What about drivers? And again, it's a sticky one because Tony Hurl, he's your brother-in-law, so I think you might have to include him somewhere. But who are some of the great drivers? Because driving's changed so much over 30 years, but I suppose a gift is still a gift.
Yes, well, Tony was a great driver. He helped me a lot too when I was younger, and he would get off at so many drives in a race, so he pushed them my way, so it gave me a great start as a driver. But Tony, he was a gift. He was a natural, and he could go to the pub on a Thursday night and have a few beers with the boys and come out and drive 3 or 4 winners at Alexandra Park on Friday.
I'd heard that.
Yeah.
Who else? Who are the other? Sometimes I see them sitting in carts and I think you were born to sit there. Some people. I might say who mine are. So who are yours? Who are the people who are great drivers that you've watched or driven against?
Yeah, well, New Zealand can hold its head high with a lot of great horsemen. You had Ricky May and Colin DeFilippi down here, and Tony and Morris up home. Barry was a very, very good driver. So a number of good drivers. Yeah.
There's a lot of young drivers these days who seem to be more front of the field, more tight lines, and they don't seem to be swooping drivers. Is it a different skill set these days, or do horses still just run for people they run for?
Yeah, well, I think people have got to have that ability where horses do respond to them and run for them, and we're seeing a lot of young drivers coming through now that are showing very good potential.
I know you'll be embarrassed when I ask this, but it's still true, so I'm going to ask it. Many people think you're the best harness racing trainer ever, particularly in this part of the world. Does that make you uncomfortable? Is that a weird thing to hear?
Yeah.
Yep.
Go on.
What's the secret? What's the key, if it's true, and I think it is, to being the best harness racing trainer ever in this part of the world? What do you do different that makes you that?
I think it's the ability to know what the horse needs.
Well, how do you know that?
Well, I don't really know how to answer that question, but look, I think it's just peaking them at the right time. And
does that come from repetition? Does that come from having looked at thousands of horses? Because there's lots of trainers who have had lots of horses and they haven't had the same success. Do you get a feeling from a horse? Do they talk to you by watching how they walk? What is it that enables you to realise what a horse needs at a certain time?
Yeah, probably a lot of things come into the equation, I think, Mick. their ability to hold condition, or whether they're too big in condition, what they can take as far as work goes, and to peak them.
It's a business. Do you love the horse? Because I haven't met many people in racing who are successful who don't love the animal.
Yes, yeah, I love the horse.
What do you love about them?
Well, I don't know. I just gel with them, and as I say with Lazarus, you sort of become very close, like a mate. And I've had a number of stallions over the years that, going back to Ilvacola, who was a lovely stallion, and Auckland Reactor was a lovely stallion, and Oscar and Vincent was another lovely horse. Young Rufus, they're just beautiful horses. So I think, I hope the feeling's mutual.
Here's an unusual one to go out on, Mark. I'm going to ask you to do a favour for all of our horse people out there watching this. It's Mark Purdon, Training 101. You would have trained against a lot of people who don't train full-time. They're not professionals, they're amateurs, or they don't have big stables, or they haven't had your budget of the past or your staff. And you probably have beaten them more times than they've beaten you. What's the one bit of advice, I asked Chris Waller this last year, you would give to smaller time trainers out there? What's the most common mistakes they should try to avoid to close the gap on you?
Well, look, I think you've just, the majority is common sense with training. And as long as you feed well and keep them warm and have a sensible training regime, you'll get to the winner's circle.
Sometimes I see them and they look a little bit fatter than some of yours might fresh up, and sometimes I see them and they look to be striding out a bit long on the hopples. Is that something that can happen when maybe you don't have a big team and therefore not as big a database around you?
Yeah, for sure. You can sort of see obvious things that why a horse mightn't go as well as, like it being too big in condition or too light, not geared properly. So there are things that those sort of trainers learn along the way.
Been a couple of times in the last decade or so I thought we'd lost you to the harness racing, and I think maybe you thought we'd lost you to harness racing too. Are you enjoying it now? Are you going to stick around for a few more years? I mean, you've got your boys with you, and are you in this for a couple more years? Do we get to have you for a bit longer?
Yeah, for sure. I'll be in for a couple more years, but I'd like to take the opportunity to have the quality time with Barbara when I get that opportunity.
Really appreciate Mark taking the time to tell us all those details about how he goes about his business and those great horses he's had over so many years. Next Monday, something really special on the Guerin Report. Andrew Voris is the boss of Addington, Australia and New Zealand. That makes him the most powerful man in New Zealand racing, but you probably don't know much about him. We're going to solve that next week with an exclusive interview, no holds barred. We ask the questions you and I want to know about the future of New Zealand racing. That's next week, Andrew Voris from Addington. For now though, something a bit more fun. He's been lighting up Cup weeks on both sides of the Tasman, so I decided to go have a chat with racing blogger Stephen Power.
Well, mate, belatedly, welcome to New Zealand.
Great to meet you.
How have you enjoyed it? It's been a pretty rugged tour you've been on. You've even dragged your missus along, so I'm sure there's been a few tiring nights.
My first time in Australia, I was there for the Spring Carnival. I'd done the 4 days at the big meetings. I went to Ballarat. I went to a place called Geelong, as I call it, properly pronounced Geelong. I've been to some stud farms up at Three Bridges. I've been on a helicopter with Gay Waterhouse. I've met the main man, the Kiwi legend, Chris Waller. And here we are in New Zealand now. I went to a place called Hamner Springs yesterday, which was unbelievable. I saw the best looking cows I've ever seen in my life, and it's a pleasure to be here.
Do you look at a lot of cows?
I love a good cow, me. I'm a bit of a farm boy.
I'm more of a horseman myself,
Right.
but not a horseman, but I like,
Yeah.
we'll get back to that later. Let's talk about building a brand and building a business, because you've got a lot of followers, and over a couple of 100,000. When you started, surely that sounded ludicrous. Like, I know you start and it's fun.
Yeah.
So what stage does it progress to being a business, to being the focal point, apart from your missus, of your life?
Yes, I mean, the only reason I joined Twitter was my gran passed away, and she's the person who got me into horse racing. One day I went to a meeting in London, and on the back of the race card it said, join us on Twitter. So I joined, I called myself Racing Blogger. No idea why, picked up my camera, started talking to 0 followers. Hello everyone, it's Stephen here. No idea what I'm doing or saying. And I had 200 followers by the end of the day saying, who's this bloody lunatic? And it just kind of kicked on from there, really. I started approaching trainers and jockeys at race meetings saying, can I grab an interview with you? And they said, yeah, sure, where's your crew?
Did anybody say sod off?
No, never.
No?
No, they were always very welcoming.
I found the same thing. I've never found anybody, unless they're going to get a horse, so you got to get them after race or early in the day. I've never had anybody say no. What I found really remarkable was how many people give you their information for free.
Yeah.
You found the same?
Absolutely. I mean, I've interviewed the likes of Aidan O'Brien, John Gosden, Gordon Elliott, Willie Mullins, the biggest trainers on planet Earth. I've been there, and I've also been to the best stud farms. I've been to their training operations, and they've opened the doors for me. And the access I've been granted to showcase that to my audience back home has been unbelievable.
Really interesting question for you. There's lots of people who watch this who are on Facebook and lots of younger ones on TikTok and all those sort of things. And once in a while, you get lots of love, which I'm sure you do. Yeah. But you also get people who don't like your style, particularly yours or to a lesser degree mine. People don't like people who have big mouths.
Yeah.
How do you deal with that? How do you deal with a bit of hatred in the morning? Because for a lot of people, it affects their mental health, Stephen.
For most people, Michael, it's probably going to deter them from doing what they do. But the best piece of advice I can give them at home is to put a Superman cape on and realise these people who are chucking shit at you are worthless. They mean absolutely nothing. So to all the trolls out there, keep coming at me. Keep bringing it on. You cannot get near me, baby. I love it. Michael, I thrive off of it. And they all want to be in Blogsy's shoes. Blogsy's done 10 years of service all over the world, and they're just hating on me because they love me.
Do you actually have a Superman cape?
I actually do, hanging up on the back of the bathroom door.
I can imagine you do. All right, what's next? Like, I find when you go to these other big meetings overseas, you educate yourself and you educate your followers. So where would you like to take the education blogging bus next?
I guess I'd like to travel a bit more of Australia. Such a huge country. I'd like to get up to Brisbane. Your big jumps carnival, Warner Bowl in Australia, Warner Bowl. I'd like to get there at some stage. But the only two places that I want to go horse racing at this stage are Japan and Hong Kong. I've pretty much ticked every bucket list I've left to do.
Yeah, Hong Kong's awesome. A different sort of, like your style there might antagonise some people because they're real punt-based.
Right.
And they don't have the same sense of humour when things don't go well. But and the language could be an issue, but it's a belter of a place. So we're going up for the Hong Kong International Races. When you look at it now for what this brand's become, does it become sometimes, because obviously you're pretty enthusiastic and I like to think I'm relatively gregarious, but sometimes being racing blogger is bloody hard. Like you're hungover or you're tired and you've got to go somewhere and someone wants to chat and you're like, really, I just want a bacon sandwich.
Bacon sandwich sounds good. I'll be honest with you, Michael, we all have our downs and our ups, don't we? Especially in this game. Being in Australia, 26 days on the go was pretty tough. I had to dig in deep. There were times when the duvet just wanted to stay above eye level and I'd disappear under the mattress. But when I meet my audience, I have to engage with them because they're the people who make me on social media. So I've never not talked to anybody.
If you act like a tool, they're going to think you're a tool and post you're a tool.
There you go. So I'd like to think I conduct myself with pride whenever I meet everyone. I try to inspire them. It's all the young people out there who want to get involved in horse racing. And I know it is an elite sport. It is a tough sport. Get out there, start blogging, start vlogging, get your name recognised, and don't be afraid to approach people. Me and him, we like to talk.
Right, I've got one for you, and you've got to tell the truth here because it's all glamour and cool things and suits and all sexy when it's going good. But today you went for a spin with the lovely Brittany Graham in a dual sulky, and you got in it, and what happened next?
I decided to take a big shit, and it was shit all over my face, shit in my tongue, shit all over my clothes, and the shit went on for a good 30 seconds, Michael. I was covered in shit. Animals, eh? Thank you. Brilliant stuff. But I kept the interview going. I didn't falter. What a professional I am.
That's Stephen.
I'll be coming for your job.
That's Stephen getting what he maybe deserves here at Addington on show day. Thanks for being on the Guerin Report.
Cheers.